Indie shows are popping up left and right, taking the animation industry by storm. It's nice seeing artists be taken serious and have their lives' work be recognized by the mainstream media. Online artists have come a long ways. Many artists with animated series now were well known before their respective work. I remember being in 7th grade and being obsessed with the webcomic Lackadaisy, and now it's getting its own show. So watching the artists from our childhood grow and learn, it's kind of cathartic to see them accomplish amazing things with the stories we know and love. But not all these series make it for a plethora of reasons. Even those that do obtain notoriety are often ostracized given time. I'm Sabah Black Sheep. Have you any soul? No sir, no sir. But today, we're going to talk about the cultural shift on narrative content and the quickest way to alienate your audience. But before we jump in, I've been working on a series called Penelope's Peon. It's a webcomic on Tapas. If you like character-oriented writing and depressed, mean, sad old men with this vintage vibe, the comic may tickle your pickle. It's very inspired by authors that I really enjoy, like Dostoevsky, and other more modern medias like Goodnight Pom Pom and Disco Elysium. Very big on the Disco Elysium one. But if you don't feel like doing that, join our Patreon to get weekly exclusive Discord streams where I draw whatever you want, or just join our 17+ Discord server to meet a bunch of cool artists and get your art in the next video. But without further ado, we begin. Many artists are writers, as we want to draw the stories we make up oftentimes. But it's not uncommon for artists to, well, put it frankly, have absolutely asinine writing. I'm sorry, but it's true. I don't think that should keep artists from writing. Don't feel discouraged. Do what makes you happy. I just notice a trend of artists having these grandiose ideas and scenes with such raw emotions, but with utter zero setup, or having very overly forward writing styles, kind of holding the hand of the reader as if they can't really infer what the subtext means. One that is most prevalent in a lot of artists' written shows and comics is poor pacing. There are a lot of factors that go into this, a lot being artists deconstruct narrative media differently as it's often more visually based. Another being that when you're drawing something like a comic, everything takes so ungodly long to draw that the artist accidentally rushes scenes thinking they are well paced. If you're sitting there drawing something for 30 minutes, it's easy to overshoot the pacing because artists often forget the reader is going to spend all of 30 seconds reading that page, not the 30 minutes the artist spent mulling over it. And one of the most common fall points is not scripting and not playing with ideas via writing, rather opting for visual mediums to express ideas, which leaves so much unfinished and poorly realized. Writing out the ideas, plot points, and concepts in a Google Doc will make your writing leagues better, as it allows you to sit down and contemplate over concepts and return back to the point of origin without getting lost in abstract thought. The human brain struggles to hold all that at once, so just drawing it will often leave these little holes in your memory that can't really hold on to the entire concept. How I write a comic to keep pacing okay is I come up with the idea, then I do an entire plot summary of the entire series. I don't let those random scenes and ideas flow around in the abstract white void that is my mind. I write it down and find where they need to be placed in the timeline. Then I go on to scripting. I try to stay 3 chapters ahead when I'm working on a project. So I have 3 scripts planned out beforehand, so I know what to hint at visually and set up. One of the most important steps I do is a complete sketch of the entire chapter before rendering the pages, as it allows me to read through the comic as I create it, to get the reader's perspective. Some of you may be thinking, wow, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, welcome to good written content. If it was easy, we wouldn't have Hazbin Hotel. That's a joke, more like every Twitter artist and their dog would have a respectable series, but most series flop since most of us artists, like it or not, aren't very good writers yet. Speaking of that red, horny elephant in the room, let's talk about the most prevalent example of well-executed indie writing and one of the more mediocre ones. The Digital Circus and Hell of a Boss / Hazbin Hotel. The Digital Circus has mass appeal as of now and is highly praised for its pacing, environmental writing, and character writing. Hell of a Boss and Hazbin Hotel have mass appeal as well, but I find they are more heavily scrutinized. And in my opinion, it's obvious the Digital Circus has a balanced writing team and/or writer. The story is well paced, and though the creator loves their characters, that love doesn't keep these characters from being well written and used to their fullest potential in the story progression. A lot of VivziePop's writing with Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss suffers from best boy syndrome. Best boy syndrome is when a writer tries to write out moral and emotional complexity to fit within the creator's finite world model. I think you see this a lot with characters like Angel Dust, Alistair, Blitz, and Stolas. A lot of Vizzie's writing with her male characters, who are often the focus of her work, fall into this asshole with a heart of gold archetype, and it often lacks that much human complexity it seems to be going for. Don't get me wrong, it's not completely awful. People wouldn't be so invested in these characters if it was. But it feels lacking in the human condition at times, and more like a parody of it. I think Blitz is one of her better written characters as he's kind of a fucked up person, and that doesn't change because, to be frank, most people like this never really do change. And we often forget that when consuming media of this nature, as we are meant to sympathize with the character. But a lot of people like this exist in our daily lives, be it our fathers, our exes, our brothers, and so on and so forth. And we don't always realize these characters act like the people we know. Think of someone in your life that is vaguely like that. Destructive, impulsive, prefers the valence of the action over the reality. Think, have they ever made meaningful change? Have they changed for a week, then went right back to the mess they are? Now, I'm not saying they are incapable of change. It is possible, don't get me wrong, if they want to. But more often than not, they don't longer than a week because change is hard, uncomfortable, and awkward. Which is why I think a lot of VivziePop's writing fell flat, especially in Hazbin Hotel, as the characters lack much realistic emotional depth, especially the female characters. Charlie, who is, well, I'm assuming old, as she is the sole child of the King and Queen of Hell, acts like an actual teenager and is shocked by pretty basic realizations, making her seem flat and uninteresting. But nonetheless, VivziePop's writing is better than a lot of people that criticize her. People greatly overestimate what it takes to write a genuinely engaging and compelling story. And VivziePop, though perhaps lacks a little on the compelling aspect, does a pretty good job of getting her audience engaged. Her writing is archetypal, but engaging and fun. It's definitely Tumblr-esque and has faded in popularity, as it's the status quo people online are bored to death by and cringed out by. But to put it back in its time of maybe 2017, it would have been nothing but praised, as it was for a long time, to the point a YouTuber got harassed pretty extensively for making a negative take on the original Hazbin Hotel pilot when it came out. Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss aren't bad, but they are mid and kind of past the decade of their audience. As the audience that enjoyed it so fervently has grown up for the most part, the Digital Circus, I believe, so far has held up a lot better. As I said before, Gooseworks, the creator of the Digital Circus, loves their characters, but not as a mother, but as a god. The best way to make good characters is don't protect them, put them in that blender. It builds character. Gods don't have mercy for what they create, they do it for the plot. The Digital Circus has held up with keeping its characters detached from the super common archetypes. The only one that falls into a particular archetype is Jax. But Jax, I believe, is a little more interesting as he pushes the boundaries a lot more. He isn't just a bad boy with a heart of gold, he's a bad person with avoidant attachment tendencies. And him vaguely falling into an archetype makes a lot more sense now, given the Guns episode where he tells Pomni to forget her humanity and embrace the absurdity of the cartoonish environment they've been forced into. Jax himself in the episode criticizes the archetype he gets put into a lot by fans. The Digital Circus keeps the mystery palatable, and the pacing well done, progressing an overarching plot behind the curtains, while all we see in the foreground is the episodic nature of the show. This is where I think VivziePop often fell flat. The mystery and revelations of her show aren't necessarily bad by any means, but they are quite predictable to some degree. Nothing feels terribly shocking or hits really hard, or at least when I was watching it. Her writing often feels like it falls into the flow and plot style of a lot of media out there. That all to say, it isn't bad, but it definitely isn't revolutionary either. I think that Digital Circus is paving a far more interesting path, and I'm glad it's gotten a lot more of attention. It has a lot more unique ideas that will shape narrative media going forward. When writing a story, it's really important to value the plot and message over your proverbial soft little bean or whatever. Remember, a good story isn't simulating how you feel about fictional characters and other people. The people with those proclivities will already have a hard-on for your OC. You want to tell a compelling story that the brain tricks itself into thinking it's real. AKA, don't make the story about the reaction to the story, make the story to project the message that you are passionate about. Or don't, and have fun. I'm more just talking from a standpoint of making good media from an objective means, and meant for an audience. If you just like your silly OC stories with not much planning or external effort, have fun! There's nothing wrong with that. Anyways, that's all I have for today, folks. If you like my art, consider commissioning me. You can reach out to me on Discord, Instagram, and Blue Sky, all in the link tree in the description. But you got work tomorrow, or school, or ranting about good writing. But as always, don't dream about wheat-based byproducts. Moi, je m'appelle Mademoiselle Noire, et qu'on va pour la voix,